Welcome to Automotive EV Live. My name is Peter Wooding, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're delighted to welcome Christoph Stuermer as part of one of our innovation showcase presentations. And the theme is Battery as a Service. Christoph Stuermer is presenting for Clean Energy Global. And as you can see, Christoph sat in his car, so this is really live, and not even in your bedroom, your dining room, or the cupboard under the stairs, but he's actually in a car, which is more appropriate. So the showcase is yours, Christoph. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's rather unfortunate that my car is neither an electric car nor an autonomous car, so I had to park by the side of the road in order to have this conversation today. Thank you again. And yeah, what I would like to share with you is an idea that we have built a startup around with a rather big name, Clean Energy Global, around a concept that we call battery as a service. And already on the first slide, I think you can very much see, and I'll explain why, what we are about. We believe that battery as a service, energy storage, is the key element to providing clean energy in the right amount, at the right place, and at the lowest cost in the future as energy transformation takes hold. Let's look at the first slide, and I think this can already give us a little bit of an idea of what the battery element in battery as a service actually does. So what you can see here at first glance may remind you of the electricity grid, but actually it is not. This is the grid, this is the network of electric storage systems, of mobile, smart and connected electric storage systems that are the backbone and the prerequisite for a battery as a service business model. In order to make this work, of course, a battery or an energy storage has to be universal. It has to come in a way that is small enough to fit into everything, but at the same time big enough to also power bigger applications. And the best idea of taking something small and making it big is basically to build it like a Lego block. So the key idea is actually that instead of providing every application, every system, every car, every boat, every house with a very particular custom-made size battery, we are proposing to create a system of battery modules, or modular battery systems actually, that can fit almost anywhere. Now you're going to tell us, wow, that's a big thing. How can this standardization work? And we actually say that standardization is going to be a natural effect of what we call the establishment of a capacity ecosystem. And let's look at the next slide for that. So we believe the capacity ecosystem is the backbone for providing clients with battery as a service. Can we have the next slide, please? So in order to create an ecosystem, what do you need? You basically need hardware, connectivity, and software. The hardware we call Clean Energy Pack as a battery that is ideally suited for this purpose, but to be really honest, it can be any old battery as long as it has a battery management system and as long as it's portable and scalable. The connectivity we call Clean Energy Link, which is basically just a function. It's a little box that pulls the data out of the battery management system, connects them to the internet through a telephone link, through a Wi-Fi link, and vice versa, receives instructions from the control infrastructure, from the control backbone that we call the Clean Energy Net. The Clean Energy Net, of course, is something very, very peculiar, because it will be responsible for controlling the storage, and in controlling this, the energy storage, it will also control energy intake and energy provisioning for all kinds of sources and users of energy. And as you all know, electricity needs to be measured very, very precisely, needs to be measured very safely. So this backbone, this clean energy net, is currently based on a very advanced distributed ledger technology, generally known as blockchain, but there are other technologies as well. So, a capacity ecosystem that provides storage as a service to the customers is the innovation behind the battery as a service business proposition. Let's go to the next slide. After explaining those three technical elements, what can we use it for? And this is really where the rather big name of our company comes from. We believe that anything that either produces electrical energy or uses electrical energy can make use of being connected to the clean energy net, of becoming part of the battery as a service infrastructure. And just as examples, we believe the entire energy sector can profit from this. And from the discussions that we're having, energy suppliers, energy utility companies really like the idea. The entire mobile sector, and this is an automotive EV conference, the entire mobile sector is suffering from too expensive, too awkward, too bulky, too unreliable batteries. And thirdly, it's of course the entire real estate sector that is working towards higher energy efficiency, and that by itself is becoming a very big and distributed, very complicated producer of electric energy. So just these three sectors can profit individually from the solution of battery as a service, but they also get connected through battery as a service into a system that works much better as a whole than each of its individual parts. And what do I mean by better? It's going to be cheaper to have energy, it's going to be greener to have energy, and it's going to be more convenient to have clean energy. Let's go to the next slide. Some of the USPs I've already outlined. What we're basically applying as battery as a service is the fundamental concepts of the circular economy to the energy sector, to the energy storage sector. I think this has been long in coming, and so far I believe this is one of the very first ideas that actually applies circular economy principles to the energy transformation itself. Let's go on. And with this, of course, also to electric vehicles. Actually, the genesis of the idea comes from a very long consideration of electric vehicles, of the cost drivers, of the technology drivers of electric vehicles. And it came to the conclusion that the only way to actually make electric vehicles economically viable is to firstly disconnect the economic life of the battery from the economic life of the vehicle, and secondly, use only the required amount of batteries in a vehicle rather than any kind of pre-specified amount of batteries that is either too small or too expensive. Next slide, please. So as we go through, this is just for reading at your leisure. We believe that the battery as a service provides advantages, significant advantages, to both stationary use of batteries, but in particular mobile use of battery storage. And that is, of course, what electric mobility is ultimately about when you look at it from an energy standpoint. Let's keep going. So what does this, once you think of energy storage as an asset, as something that you actually use, first of all, you need to acquire the asset. How do you do that? We have an example for that. First of all, you need to acquire the asset. Then you will use the asset, produce numerous data in using it, and then ultimately you will want to control the asset as if it was, say, a rental bike, say, a house, a rental car. Any rented assets basically produces these three kinds of data. Next slide is really an example of the data architecture that is going to be produced. And this gives you a little bit of an explanation of why data safety and data security is a very significant part of what we're talking about. We have the entire IoT system is open to connect with the batteries through the clean energy link, and actually takes energy storage out of the Stone Age, out of the analog age, into the IoT. Now, someone's going to tell me, well, I have solar panels at home, I have a battery at home, and they're connected to the internet, and I have a beautiful app to actually look at what they're doing. Well, yes, indeed, but it's not the batteries that are your batteries that are connected, but it is the inverter that is connected, that in turn controls the entire system, that in turn controls the battery. That for us would be the connectivity of the application, but not of the storage itself. Let's continue. And from this point, I believe it's getting a little bit technical, because we want to explain to you how the systems are actually set up that we're using to realize that system. So first of all, this backend has to live in the cloud, because you want to have ubiquitous availability, instant availability, and the highest standards of data safety and security. Next slide, please. And as we establish the system in the cloud, we're also using the cloud to perform all kinds of control functions over the batteries. If you control battery storage on the storage level, you can guarantee a much higher level of safety and reliability than if you only control batteries through the application that is actually not purpose-built to control batteries, but that is purpose-built to drive, or to be a dumpster, or to basically stamp out stuff or so. So the direct control of batteries is going to make batteries much more reliable, and you need a lot of data to do that. So just simply putting a little RFID chip on a battery is not going to do the trick. We believe, and this is how we've conceptualized it, that without a full IoT integration, the whole battery as a service system cannot work and cannot produce the kind of benefits that we actually propose to get from battery as a service. Now we continue a little bit into the technical side of things, and what we can see here is the way that we've designed an app to actually promote, to actually visualize the end user experience of battery as a service. As we said, all these big important slogans like capacity ecosystem or battery as a service, at the end, for the end user, it's merely a rental system for batteries. But rental has a lot of benefits to it, in that you don't have to buy the asset, but you simply use it. You only pay for it when you use it. You don't pay for it your entire life, but only as you use it. And the other example that we're showing on the next slide is actually how the battery is being returned. But these are just the technical control functions. Of course, we are very much aware that including a a full payment function, a full function for keeping customer data in all the contracts is going to just make the system much too big. So the concentration of the clean energy net is clearly on the technical functions, monitoring the state of the storage itself. All the contractual details will then be provided to those companies that actually own the clean energy packs or the electric storage systems, that own the customer relationship, and that actually do the contracting and that actually do the billing. Let's continue on. Next slide, please, as well. So this is example 1 of the rental process. This is example 2 of the return process. And now we can get even a little bit deeper on the next slide and get an impression of the kind of technology that we propose to use for the Clean Energy Link. And the slide is going to switch soon, I hope. So this is a microcomputer, and you can see that it's really a little computer in itself. And as we said, it's not enough to just put an RFID chip on a battery in order to be able to run this system. But you want to have all kinds of technical monitoring systems. You want to know the state of health that the battery system is in. You want to know how it is being treated, what the charge level is, and you want it, of course, to be universally applicable. At the time when we invented the idea of actually adjustable voltage by stacking battery systems, the idea was quite revolutionary. Of course, time has caught up with us, and it is now very well possible to get pre-configured battery management systems that allow any range of voltage. But the trick behind the voltage idea is actually that whenever the storage system is disconnected, it is totally not dangerous. It runs on 48 volts. But when you stick it into different applications in serial or parallel array, it can actually produce voltages that are right for even the most powerful applications, all the way up to 800 volts at the state of current planning. And finally, to sort of lift the curtain of the original idea of what it all came about, is a conceptual design model of this universal battery system. And I hope the slide will switch now. And it is basically a very conveniently handled independent battery system. And now you're going to say, okay, now I know what Clean Energy Global does. They produce batteries. And if that is your takeaway message, that's not the message I'm trying to convey. Clean Energy Global is proposing a totally new business model for using and deploying electrical energy storage in a much more efficient, sustainable, and convenient way that will benefit all uses, be it in electric vehicles, be it in energy distribution, be it in energy generation. And for the purpose of that, we believe a very good fit to this kind of a model would be a battery system that looks like this or similar. But the true core ingredients of the battery as a system infrastructure is a highly intelligent, absolutely safe and secure data management backend and full connectivity of the storage assets, plus, if available, full connectivity of the applications such as houses, cars, boats, dumpsters, you name it, anything that either today already works electric or can be made to work electric with this kind of a more convenient, cheaper, and more sustainable energy storage system behind. So thank you very much. I'd like to close this presentation with the face and name of our managing director, Philip Rosengarten. He'll be happy to handle any of your questions. Of course, there's a little bit more for you to read. I am, of course, happily available for more questions on the business model, the products, and the state of the company. Please feel free to ask either now or after the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christoph. Really, really interesting. Firstly, one quick question. Who is the typical customer for battery as a service? And what sector do you see most active in this space?
In our case, we really have to make a difference between the user and the customer. The user of battery as a system, in a way, is already today's user of a rental scooter who has a detachable battery. So the system is already on the street. The segment that we believe is still in need of such a system is the commercial vehicle sector, is the van sector, and ultimately, of course, the car sector. But also anybody who owns a house, anybody who has a flat, anybody who's any industrial application, but also off-grid applications that don't have their own power station but still need electricity. So it's really a universal tool for universal use.
What's the life expectancy of a battery pack?
That is a very good question. Very much dependent on how you use it. So if you use a battery to the fullest, you charge at maximum, you discharge at maximum, you can wreck it within 300 charge and discharge cycles. You can completely ruin it within 300 cycles. If you use it rather carefully, if you take your time charging, if you take your time discharging, if you don't heat it too much, and so, you can get up to 6,000 cycles out of the very same pack with the very same battery cells in them. This is one of the basic features of how renting batteries can be cheaper than buying them, because if you rent them, they will be put through a mixed cycle and can have a much longer lifetime than a battery that, for example, just sits in a very high stress application and gets ruined very quickly.
Okay, quick question from Achim Lass. Any comments on cost for the service?
We've run calculations, and depending, hi Achim, on how you actually use it, the provisioning of 1 kilowatt hour of storage can cost between 10 cents and 2 euros. But that is entirely up to the user what kind of a price he's going to pay, because it depends on the kind of use that he's putting it to. And we believe that the high power, high density usage is also going to create enough value to justify that rental price.
Okay. Is there any scope for Clean Energy Global to exploit the second life battery sector?
Well, actually, what we're doing is we're combining first and second life into the full life cycle of the battery. There's not going to be a second life, because as you switch the use of the battery, it will not get consumed as much as it would if it was, for example, just used in a truck or in a car, and therefore it would deteriorate very quickly. The conversion cost of first cycle to second cycle in our system is already included. It comes for free, and it is an integrated part of the life cycle management model of those batteries, between sitting in the vehicle, sitting in storage, being charged, doing something else, and then returning back to the vehicle.
If we could, one final question really, because of time. When can we expect to see Clean Energy Global out there fueling our society?
Well, this is of course, building such a platform and infrastructure can take very, very long time. Developing the technical prerequisites takes about half a year from starting today. Once we have the capital, assumed, because we're planning to work only with a technological specialists, both on the back end, the connectivity, as well as on the battery side. And once the technology is there, we believe it's going to be instant, because we're getting new requests for these kind of applications basically every week. So and the trick, if you run a fleet, not just of vehicles, but of machinery, houses, real estate, and vehicles on an electric system, this is all assets, and not just for the one that the batteries are used in. So we believe that industrial users will be very quick to adapt. Fleet users, logistic companies, of course, will love this, because this is basically a logistical intelligence. This is basically the addition of logistical intelligence to the energy storage sector.
Christoph, thank you very much. Really enjoyed the presentation, and I look forward to following what you're doing and keeping to sort of put the message out there. But thank you, and especially we all want to say thank you for the session to Christoph, and for everybody viewing, remember he delivered this presentation from his car, despite the fact it's not electric, but we can talk about that another day. Take care, Christoph. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.